That was some intro. New intro. I like that. There was that one shot of me in Boston. It looks like I'm in the bathroom. Very cool. What up, Doe? Tom Clos here at Classy Hawkeye on Twitter. Tuesday, November 2nd, the extended postmortem of Iowa at Wisconsin, the debacle that was. I'm gonna shoot for about an hour tonight. There's only so much I can touch on with Iowa football, and I'll get into that in moments. I'm also gonna hit on a little later Iowa basketball. They have an exhibition Friday against Slippery Rock, and then their first real game, is a week from tonight against Longwood at Carver. So we'll touch on them as well on the back end because there's a little more hope right now, at least right now, than there is with Iowa football. Just a reminder real quick before we get rolling. Up at the top left corner there, find us on Facebook at Iowa Sports Review and on Twitter at IA Sports Review. That's my Twitter handle at the bottom, Classy Hawkeye. I write for Go Iowa Awesome under that moniker. So just hit the follow and yeah, I'm very witty on Twitter. Let's get into it. I got to be honest. I did a show Saturday following the game, and that was really as raw as it could. Well, if you had caught me walking out of the stadium during the jump around at the start of the fourth quarter, that would have been as raw as it gets. But it was better that I wasn't doing a show then, because it would just be nothing but probably F this and F that. Yeah, it was a complete disaster on every level. 14 days later, the offense changed nothing. And really it leaves Iowa football in, forget about it. I mean, this season is over, but just hopeless going forward for many reasons. And, Kirk Ferentz had media availability today, and I saw a quote of his, and it just shows how tone deaf and out of it he is. And, if you're empowered by the school for 22 years and you have no threat of losing your job, which, again, he shouldn't lose his job. But if there's no threat of any of that and he's never going to fire his son, then I guess you can make quotes like this. But I got it right here. He says, you go back and look historically. He essentially said, we're not going to change our system wholesale in the season. No kidding, Kirk. You're not going to all of a sudden go to a spread offense. That's amazing. That's real insightful. But this quote in particular, you go back and look historically at a lot of our seasons. Can't think of many that didn't have bumps and adversity along the way. And all you have to do is look at the last 3 years. 3 years ago, we lost 3 in a row. That was 2018. We lost 2 in a row the last 2 years. I think everyone was happy at the end of those seasons. Were we? Were we happy? Like, was anyone happy winning the Outback Bowl? Like did that make somebody's day? Like, I mean, I remember it was the day I actually moved to Des Moines. We watched that Outback Bowl. I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings, and I won the game, and I went, oh, woo, go Hawks, good win. All right, that's it. I didn't do a shot. I didn't, run around and celebrate. I didn't go and buy an Outback Bowl championship t-shirt. Nothing. No, nobody's happy with that. Yeah, everyone likes to win, but like, did that make anyone happy? No. I mean, is that the goal? I think it is. I really think it is for this program. 2 years ago, game in Madison that I was there, they were much more competitive. That was the Nate Stanley inches away from tying the game on a 2-point conversion, which I can live with. I mean, they went up there and really played their ass off. Wisconsin made a couple plays at the end. That was it. That's fine. Finished that winning the Holiday Bowl. Yeah, cool. They beat USC, Clay Helton. Happy? No. Like, I don't know. Yeah, 10 wins and nothing to show for it. Am I happy with that? I remember thinking after that, like, I want to be really upset because they didn't win anything, but they won 10 games, so I'll just be content with it. But it's more content than nobody's happy. Who's happy about that? And then last year it was whatever, COVID, who even knows? But the bottom line is, if that's Kirk's view of this program from a long range, that is acceptable, then we should all not worry about what happened on Saturday, because this team will probably win Saturday against Northwestern. They're going to beat Illinois. Nebraska might be in a tailspin by the end. Quite frankly, and this will drive me even more insane probably, this team could still, as shocking as this sounds, I could see them winning out and in winning nothing. I mean, it reminds me, it just goes back to, you talk about if Kirk's ever going to leave. That's been the big topic this week. 2014 was a complete disaster. And the season spiraled, the Hawkslayer Bowl, that's football, all of that. And 2015, going into it, I remember there was a sense around the program like, yeah, they probably have to win about 9 games this year. And they weren't supposed to. I mean, that team came out of nowhere. 9, maybe 10. They got to make a run or something, because is it ever going to happen again? And then they went 12-0 and won. But again, I'll give them credit. They got to the Big Ten title game, but they didn't win it. So is that what this program is? And if you go back historically and you look at Iowa under Kirk, and this is, you can't play revisionist history, and it's not fair to Kirk or the program for me to say that the Big Ten titles in the early 2000s aren't as meaningful because they wouldn't count nowadays. That's not fair. That was the system at the time. It drives me crazy when anyone says, so-and-so won a half a national title. Michigan and Nebraska each won a half national championship in 1997. They both went undefeated and won the title. I mean, it was a dumb system, but that's how it was set up. They both get the national championship. That's just how it works. And so in 2002 and 2004, Iowa won a share of the Big Ten championship. That's the highlight. That's what we can always lay back with Kirk, that he brought them Big Ten titles. If there was such thing as the Big Ten championship game back then, if it was the current system, they would have never won either. I mean, they would have lost to Ohio State in 2002, and they already lost them. They actually lost to Michigan in 2004. They just tied them in the standings. That's why they didn't go to the Rose Bowl. So I think because everyone's kind of chasing like that early 2000s run, or at least I think, I always think back to that, and I'm like, can they ever get back to that? Well, they still didn't really, they didn't win an outright Big Ten title. And in the era of title games, forget it. I mean, 2015, let's be real. They caught a big break with that schedule, but also catching Michigan State in the title game, and they still didn't beat them. But, Michigan State goes to Ohio State and wins a miracle game with no quarterback. That Ohio State team with Zeke and Braxton and all of them, Braxton Miller and I'm forgetting the JT McDaniel or JT. I forget. No, not JT. I forget his name. I'm blanking on the Ohio State quarterback. But anyways, it was a vintage Ohio State team that finished with that only one loss under Urban. And if Iowa runs into them in Indy, they would have lost by 3 touchdowns. So they caught every break in 15, and they still couldn't get a stop on that last drive. And so just from a wide angle lens looking at this thing, it feels hopeless. I mean, there's no chance Kirk will ever be fired. Not that he should be, but it's not going to happen. He's 22 years in, something like that. He's never going to fire his son. I will believe that the day I see it. I'll never believe any smoke there. It just won't happen, because there's no threat. The only way that would ever come to fruition is if there was a threat that Kirk could be fired. And even then, it seems crazy that he's going to fire his son. And it's spiraling towards this like Bill Snyder, Kansas State situation where, the talk is like, oh, Brian's going to be the successor. I mean, if he's the successor, then what are we doing? What's even happening? But I'm going to guess Kirk's going to try that. It's his son. Kansas State, if you don't get the reference, Kansas State, Bill Snyder was there forever. Legend. They're Kirk Ferentz. Stadium's named after him. Basically built the program. He held out for years, wouldn't retire. The guy was like 100, would not retire because he wanted his son to take over as head coach and was waiting for that move. And the school just would not commit. And then eventually kind of forced Bill out. So maybe we're heading towards something like that. I don't think so, just because the other part of this is Iowa doesn't have a real AD. I mean, Gary Barta, who's running the college football playoff committee, I didn't pay attention to any of those rankings, but I just see a bunch of people screaming at Gary Barta today. So I'm sure he's doing a great job. It's bleak. It's bleak. They don't have Iowa doesn't have a real AD, and so he'll never really force Ferentz out. He'll probably give him an extension in a year because they've gone another 8-4 Foster Farms Bowl championship, and we can lift a trophy. And so it's very bleak going forward, which is crazy. I was rushing the field 3 weeks ago against Penn State, and now it's hopeless this year and next year. To win the West, one, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're not beating anyone in the East. They're not going to beat Michigan State or Ohio State. Those teams are much better, so I think it's irrelevant if they even win the West. But to win the West, I don't know. You have to win out. You have to pray that Wisconsin loses again. Now I'm sitting here waiting for mediocre teams to lose, and Wisconsin might be a very good team at the end of the day. I mean, they've been bad. They were bad for the first half of the season. All of a sudden now they look, yesterday they looked like, or whatever it was, Saturday they looked like the Pittsburgh Steelers. So who knows? But that seems done. It just seems lost. And Iowa, I joke that they're going to go undefeated. It feels like they have another loss in them. Like, this team is very vulnerable. That shouldn't be this week. If they lose this week to Northwestern, this is like a program game. This is, do you have any pride? Northwestern is horrific especially defensively, but they are a bad team. They went to Lincoln and lost by 100. They've lost 2 straight. Iowa cannot lose this week to Northwestern. They just can't. I don't think they will. It should be ugly. I can't imagine anyone paying money to go to the game. I'll have to watch it, I guess, on TV. But if you're traveling for this thing, wow! Unless you lost the bet or you were stuck into a hotel, oof, that's rough. Unless you just don't care about them winning and stuff. And I realize there is a segment of the fan base that is just sort of like, it's always funny when I'm at a road game and Iowa's losing, usually at Wisconsin. There's always these people there that are like, I'm furious the whole time. Like, from the second that game started, I was miserable. And there's these people Iowa fans near me that are like high-fiving and joking around. And maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe that's healthier. Ignorance is bliss, because if you kind of knew what was going on and what was at stake, and I mean, Iowa, and it was fake, but Iowa entered the game number 9 in the country and put up 156 yards of offense. You'd be laughing the whole time and joking around and palling around, and Madison's a great time. So maybe that's healthier. I don't know. But those are probably the people going to Northwestern this week for the Iowa Northwestern game. Speaking of 156 yards of offense, 4 years ago, Iowa went to Wisconsin and put up 66 yards of offense. It was 4 years ago. That was the Josh Jackson game. I think he had 2 pick sixes in that game. It was a week after Iowa beat Ohio State 55-24 at Kinnick, that game that everyone's still talking about that doesn't really mean much. And 4 years later, nothing has changed. I mean, I'm looking. It wasn't as bad as that game, because that game was kind of better in a weird way. Iowa was up early in that game, so it was a little more fun for at least half a second. But from a statistical standpoint, it wasn't as bad as 66 yards of offense. It was pretty bad, though. I mean, there was no creativity on offense. Nothing changed. Stretch runs on first down, banging your head into the wall. Petrus missing slant routes. Iowa doesn't throw the ball further than 20 yards. No we're going to get Goodson the ball in space. We're not going to get the young guys involved. And that's what's most frustrating. Because I do think like there is talent there. I really think this is a lot of, and I'm not even talking on Petrus. He might just not be very good, but they do have some players out there, some skill position players that I don't know. Like, I think in the right situation, you can do some things. This isn't, Iowa doesn't have, I mean, gosh, look at that 15 team. This is like night and day. I think they have a lot more speed than 15. 15 was so reliant on CJ Beathard hobbling around and tight ends. They didn't have great running backs. Kanzier. I mean, Tyler Goodson is their best running back they've had in forever, probably since Sean Green. So and that's what's most maddening. This team should be capable of something more on offense, and there's no creativity and just nothing. And that offensive line is it's just as lost as ever. And now 8 games in, it's not going to get better. This is it. And this is why when we talk about like a Big Ten shit, they have no chance. I mean, they have no hope because they're not going to be able to run the ball against anyone decent. They should be able to this week, but I don't trust it until they do it. But that's why when you're talking about like, can they get to Indy? Can they beat a team? It's bleak. So, I touched on a lot of this Friday. Quite frankly, there's not much more. I on the Wisconsin game. It's basically all just ranting. And that's actually a great point. They do look like 2013, but again, that 2013 team, I was actually in school for that team, and I remember it was after the 2012 4-8 season, and that team there was an excitement. I think because the expectations were just so low that they had those 3 linebackers, Morris, Kirksey, and what's his name? Forget the other one. And Beathard finally Beathard, Rudock and Beathard only came in the Nebraska game. I'm sorry. Rudock was the quarterback, but that team, there was more. This team has much better talent than that team, but I don't know. That team had an identity. This team doesn't feel like it has an identity. And I said this for weeks now. Like, I don't know where it hit. Hitchens. Thank you. Anthony Hitchens. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Is it again, like, and we saw it again. Are we just hoping for deflection interceptions? We need 4 of them a game. There was a great stat I saw today. Iowa was plus 16, I think it was, when they started 6-0, plus 15 when they started 6-0. In the last 2 games, they're minus 6. I mean, that's minus 3 Purdue, minus 3 against Wisconsin. That's it. I mean, that's what this team is, I guess. But is that an identity? Like, no offense? It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. Is that true? Is that true? That can't. Oh, Kirk Ferentz, coach wide receiver. I was gonna say Tim Dwight, but he wasn't. That probably is true. As sad as that is, I didn't see that touchdown, by the way. That's good for Amir. Gosh, that is a stat. That's just a bleak stat. But again, you can accept at Iowa, their wide receiver room has grown so much thanks to Amir and thanks to Brennan Smith. And I mean, they have a lot of the typical, like, undersized, not downfield threat guys, but you can do more with them than what they're doing. Like, especially when your quarterback can't hit him on slant routes. Get him involved with sweep plays. Get him involved with more screens. They don't run screens anymore. I don't see Tyler Goodson on screen passes. I just don't see any new ideas. It's the same. And in that game Saturday, when they came out, they had the big return from Charlie Jones to start the game, and they came out and went 3 and out with the same exact offense. You knew it was over. It was over. It was done. Whether or not, and look, Iowa made more mistakes and fumbled and dropped a punt and stuff, but you knew they were losing that game, if not 27-7, 6-3. I mean, they were done, because I expected him to come out first play, maybe even like a trick play, something new, Wildcat, have Goodson throw. I don't even know if he can throw. I'm just saying anything. Was Casper there? That's a good point. Kevin Casper. Yeah, he was inherited from Hayden. Was he there in 99? I thought he was gone by then. Yeah, I thought he was gone by then. Coach, I don't know. Anyways, that's a great stat. That is something I will definitely look up after this. Was Kevin Casper did he catch a touchdown pass in the NFL? Was he coached by Ferentz? I don't know. Amir Smith-Marset, though, if he's not the first, he's the second. And back to Amir, him and Brandon Smith really grew this. They started this renaissance with supposed renaissance with the Iowa wide receiver room. I've seen, Iowa's kind of hung their hand on that. We've upgraded. We used to have no receivers. Now we have all these receivers. They don't use them. I mean, Brian Ferentz, he barely utilizes them. He doesn't use them well. He has the wrong ones out there. Keegan Johnson should be playing much more. I didn't see him until the fake comeback started. And in that game, the most maddening thing was that game was over 5 minutes in, and maybe not even 5 minutes in. They were never in it. And it's inexcusable. And that's entirely on coaching, because we know it comes down to coaching now, because it's one thing for them to go out and they're not losing these games. Like these aren't really beatable teams. And they're not going out and losing these games 6-3 and the offense is just dropping the ball a lot and all this. No. We know what they are. We know they can't run the ball between the tackles. It's just not going to happen. We know that Petrus is limited. We know that the wide receivers aren't such a downfield threat, but I do think there is something there, and we've seen nothing different. I mean, they came out after 14 days with it not working. I mean, it looked like this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever, and it looks exactly the same. So it's entirely on coaching. Dropping punts, fumbling on handoffs on the 1 yard line. Yeah, those are terrible plays by the kids. But they weren't ready to go. I mean, they were not ready 14 days later to adjust to anything. I thought the defense wasn't really ready for this game. Also, the defense played well. I'm not blaming the defense for anything. I mean, the defense has been the reason they've won 6 games, clearly. And the defense played well in the second half. The first half, they were not great. I mean, they were fine. Wisconsin was moving the ball, though. They were running. They were throwing. Wisconsin averaged, I think, 5-6 yards a pass, 4 to 5 a carry. So it was an all-around disastrous effort. I mean, it was just disastrous. And in the archives, you can go back to Friday or Saturday, my thoughts after the game when I kind of ramped up and down. I had to catch myself from Madison. I was upset. I was in Madison. I spent money to go to that game, and I left in the third quarter. Earliest I've ever left an Iowa game. It was horrible. It was terrible. And so the season, I mean, let's look ahead to Northwestern. This season is on it's on its last legs for all intents and purposes. This is a game that you have to win. It's a program game. You have nothing to gain from it other than nothing. Actually, you have nothing to gain. You have everything to lose. You can't lose this game. You have to beat Northwestern on an annual basis if you're Iowa, and you haven't been. This Northwestern team is not good. And it's just, you just have to go there and win, and that's it. And it probably won't mean much in the end of the day. It's just check it off the list. Northwestern's lost 2 straight. Like I mentioned, they lost to Nebraska by about 1 million in Lincoln a few years ago, or a few through. I was looking up some of their stats against Minnesota. They got housed. They're just cycling through bad quarterbacks. They've used about 3 of them this year. They're all bad. It's not a very good team. They're allowing 420 yards a game on the ground, 420 and a half. If Iowa can't run against this team, they're not going to run against anyone, period. That's it. Like, if the offensive line can't get any push against this team, and if Tyler Goodson can't eclipse 100 yards, then just stop running the ball ever, because this is, or I'm sorry, 229 on the ground, 420 total, 229 and a half on the ground, 420 yards per game total they're allowing. If Iowa can't run on this team, forget it. I mean, that's it, because you're not going to run on anyone else ever if you can't run on this team. So this should be a get-right game for Iowa on offense. Ryan's Field, whatever you call it, the high school stadium. It's usually all Hawkeye fans. We were there 2 years ago. It's fun if you love glorified high school games. But it should be all Iowa fans right outside of Chicago. I can't imagine a Northwestern fan going to this. I can't imagine an Iowa fan going to this game. I'm surprised it's televised, actually. But thank you, Big Ten Network. But yeah, it's just win and keep it going. That's pretty much it. Keep the season from being a complete disaster. I wanted to actually, and that's all I have in Northwestern. That's it. They're a bad team. They're right a little bit above Illinois. I wanted to get to this thing about the last few years at Iowa, but thoughts on tonight. I didn't even look at them. I'll have to look after the show, or I probably won't. They don't mean anything the first week. If Iowa's ranked, then throw them all out. I will say that, because it's I saw Iowa was, I think, 22nd in the AP poll or something. Who is voting in this thing? I mean, is it just 6-2, and so we're going to slot them in? I mean, this team is not even top 40 right now. Like, who would you pick them to beat outside of Northwestern and Illinois? None of these teams. I can't say they're going to go on the road and whack Nebraska. So they're not even top 40. How that just shows the farce that the polls are, the voting polls. I don't know about the play. I haven't looked. Gary Barta's running the show though, so I'm sure they're a complete disaster. I probably won't even look. I'm so turned off by the whole product now. Doesn't mean anything anymore. I wanted to get to this though. I compiled a list, and this just kind of shows where the Iowa program is, and really what is it? You know, and then this is the thing I've been thinking about since Saturday. It's like, what do we expect? You know, because that Ferentz quote really hammered it home, where he thinks we're all happy after the last 3 years. And look, I understand at Iowa, it isn't Ohio State, it's not Alabama. I'm not under that delusion. Get to the playoff. I mean, they never get to the playoffs, so I can't have that expectation. Win the Big Ten. They haven't won the Big Ten outright since '85, so I can't. That can't be the expectation every season. But I think it's fair to I don't know. I'm looking at Northwestern was in the Big Ten title game 2 in the last 4 years. I don't know. Like, maybe that can be a goal. Like, 2 of every. Actually, 2 of the last 3 Northwestern was. Can that be the goal? You know, like, can it be get to Indianapolis twice every 5 years at least, and then you figure, I don't know, Wisconsin the other 2, and then maybe someone with the talent Iowa gets compared to these other schools, I think in the West, I think that's fair. You know, I think that's really, really fair. You know, and so just looking back at Iowa under Ferentz, I compiled this list of the best, you know, these wins that we always talk about all the time, and they're just fake. I mean, they're completely fake. And it's indicative of the program. Penn State 2008, the Daniel Murray game, great. I mean, it was a great moment, iconic, hits the field goal. It was the Sean Green out, the whole deal. Murray sliding after that. You know, Iowa was, I think, 5-4 at the time. Penn State was number 2. So that led to nothing. I think Iowa won the Outback Bowl that year. Michigan, 2016, phenomenal moment. You know, the Keith Duncan game, it's great. Michigan was number 2. Iowa was coming off the disastrous 41-14 game at Penn State. I was at that. That was the worst Iowa game I've ever been to. That was cool. Iowa went on to lose, I think, the Outback Bowl that year to Florida, so that didn't mean much. Ohio State 2017, I mentioned this earlier, 55-24, great. And that being said, I remember 2017 Iowa. That that was not a team that we thought was going to, win the West or anything. But again, great win. Everyone rushed the field. It's fun. Led to nothing. The next week, they put up 66 yards at Wisconsin. And then Minnesota 2019, I love this one. I was at the game. It was great. It was fun. Minnesota was number 9 or something. They were 9-0. Iowa beats them. Iowa was favored in the game, I remember. Iowa beats them 1 week after losing at Wisconsin. Everyone rushed the field. Awesome. Iowa goes to the Holiday Bowl. And so and then 3 weeks ago, whatever that was, Penn State. Now, that being said, I rushed the field. I was jumping to number 2 at the time, so I got that. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but again, all these big wins in this program has ever put together, they've meant nothing. Whenever they've needed a big win at Wisconsin, they don't get it. But they'll beat them last year when it really meant nothing in front of nobody. 2015 is the exception, I guess. And 2009, I mean, I guess the last 2 times they won at Wisconsin, it did mean something in terms of going on a run and having a shot, but they don't lead to anything. Is this program just predicated on rivalry trophies? It feels that way. And there was a comment a second ago about it feels like we're back to the That's Football Kirk, and it really does. I mean, it really feels like, yeah, there it is. It really feels like we're back to 2014. And I mean, I could definitely see this season cratering like that. You beat Northwestern, you beat Illinois, you lose the other 2. All of a sudden you're 8-4, and then you'll lose a bowl game. You're 8-5. I think that's exactly what 14 was. They may have been 7-5, but what's the difference? So I do think we're back there, which is just, it's horrible. I mean, it's not where you want to be. I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and I was like, I'd rather this program go through stretches of 4-8, 6-6, and then have your jump where it's 10-2, 11-1, and then back down to I'll take bowlless seasons if I can get a Big Ten title run once every 5 years. I mean, this purgatory 8-4, I used to call it the Buffalo Bills purgatory. The Bills have finally put it together, but the Bills were always the Buffalo Bills for a decade were always, I remember they'd be 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, 7-9, never make the playoffs, but never bottom out. You're just stuck in neutral. And I wish I'd take getting smoked in the Rose Bowl at this point. I wish it either you become elite or I don't want to say bottom out, but make a move down so then we can evolve, so that we can so it has to go somewhere. We can't keep doing this. I know in 2 years I'm gonna go to Madison because I'm a sicko. Iowa's gonna be 6-1, for a big game against Wisconsin, and they're gonna put up 90 yards of offense, and we're gonna be doing the same thing all over again. I could have done this show 4 years ago. I could have done this show 2 years ago. So it's bleak. It's bleak, and not just this season. I mean, the season's over. It's done. They can't win anything now. Oh wait, they can win Floyd and the Heroes Trophy from Nebraska. That's right. Yeah, let's stack that trophy case that fans can't even see. I can't even get in the athletic center. I got to on Saturday. Somebody mentioned I have to go to the state fair to see him, which I did. But it's bleak. It's horrible. It's terrible. I feel duped, and this is nothing personal. It's just I just felt duped. I got excited with this team, and they turned out to be everything we feared. It's amazing. I think we just looked at the first half of the season was just an incredibly lucky, fluky run of we're gonna pick off 7 interceptions at Maryland and 4 interceptions against Indiana and knock out Penn State's quarterback. It was just the perfect storm that we're just seeing the other side of it now. And this team was preseason number 18. They don't even look that good. That's the thing. It'd be one thing if it's okay, they weren't number 2, but they're still top 20. They're not. I mean, like I said, they're barely top 40 right now. So, yeah. I don't know. I hate them all. I hate every rivalry trophy at this point because that's what the program's predicated on. And that's my answer to that. So anyways, basketball. Let's just shift gears. I got to get off the football team. Basketball opens a week from today. There's some excitement. I got to be honest. It's tough for me. I'll get up for it later this week, but the dirty little secret with the basketball program, and look, this is coming from someone that when I was a student, they were giving away tickets to the Wisconsin game. So it's come a long way, and I've always been a Fran McCaffrey fan. It feels like a lot of the fan base doesn't like him. Always defended him. I think he's done great things for the program. He's certainly dug them out of the absolute hole that was the Licklider era. He deserves a lot of credit for that. Last season was, and I was there in Indianapolis for the NCAA tournament games. Last season was just and it gets overlooked. I don't know why. And it really did media wise. I don't know what that was around Iowa. It was such a disappointment. It was such a just disappointment. It was a disappointment. And how do you fill the void Garza's leaving? I'll get to that in a second. It's last season was, you had everything right there. They didn't win the Big Ten. Michigan came out of nowhere, won the Big Ten. They didn't really come close to winning the Big Ten. Didn't win the Big Ten tournament. Didn't get to the Sweet 16. It was a disappointment on every level. And so if you look in a vacuum at this year's team, yes, I think there's some excitement there. And Keegan Johnson, all Big Ten, he's a sophomore. You could see it coming. The kid is just a stud. He was a stud the second last season started. Great find by Fran. And I know he's a legacy, him and his brother, but just great pull. And his brother's going to play this year too, which would be good to see. But gosh, following up last season, it's, the one thing, and this will go into the expectations for this team. The big goal, this team's not win the Big Ten. Preseason poll by the Indy Star, I saw they were slotted 9th in the Big Ten, just below Rutgers and ahead of Wisconsin, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, and Minnesota. And they should be better than all those teams and right around that Rutgers level. You got to get to the NCAA tournament. The one thing Fran has not really been able to do, and they would have been in the tournament 2 years ago. COVID happened. Obviously, they were in it last year. 3 years ago, they missed the tournament. You have to keep making the tournament. Oh, no, they made it 3 years ago. I'm sorry. So I apologize. They got to keep making the tournament. To be a real program, you have to keep making the tournament. And so that's number one. That is just the ultimate goal this year. Development and all that. They have to make the NCAA tournament. You have to stay relevant. You cannot. Iowa was still kind of caught up in this, going back to like the Tyler Cook, Jabo early days, where they missed the tournament a couple years, and you can't. That can't happen anymore. We have to be past that. You were number 2 in the country for a stretch last year. You were number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. You have to stay in the tournament. You have to stay relevant. And but yeah, that's a good point right there. And that's my overall thought right now is, especially last year, it was so disappointing in that, they didn't, and they looked, and this goes back to coaching, I think. And I'm a Fran guy, but no, they were point guarded to death by Oregon. You knew that was their downfall. For as good as Garza was, it was sort of a not antiquated type of system, but it wasn't sustainable in an NCAA tournament. Yeah, you could dominate teams in the regular season, and it just came to fruition. And that was a game again. They were up at the break at a timeout midway through the first half, and then it just fell apart. They were out of it by halftime, and that's. It parallels a lot of Iowa football in that respect, where it just seems like they're stuck in this, and now like 2015, they get to the Big Ten championship game, finish in the top 10, lose the Rose Bowl, whatever, and then they take a step back for 4 years or however long it's been. It's been 6 years now. They still haven't been back. And so Iowa, it's fine. It's fine if you're elite for a year at Iowa, and then this year you scrape into the tournament. But I better be coming out of this season one in the tournament. It'd be nice if they could get to the second weekend for once in my lifetime. But two, I have to be looking ahead, going, okay, there's pieces there. The recruiting's still rolling. This team can challenge for a Big Ten title next year. Look at Purdue. I mean, Purdue going into last season was, maybe top 4 Big Ten, had a nice class coming in, didn't quite know like how good they could be. Well, they were phenomenal. I mean, they were spectacular throughout all of last season for what they had talent-wise. And so this season, they're the overwhelming favorite in the Big Ten, and they should be. Painter's got them on an upswing again. I don't think that's too much to ask. I get the talent level in Indiana is different than in Iowa. It's tougher to recruit at Iowa. I completely understand that. It's easier to recruit at Purdue in basketball. 100%. But Iowa should be able to have stretches where they're challenging for that top 4 in the Big Ten tournament 3 out of 4 years. I mean, Wisconsin's been doing it. Wisconsin shouldn't be good this year. I have a strange feeling Wisconsin's going to be good this year because they always are. Most annoying program in the world. But I don't think that's too much to ask. And so expectations this season, obviously growth. I'm interested to see what Bohannon has left. He looked very not lost last year, but I think more lost in the shuffle because there was so much talent around that he just wasn't. And so now he can kind of, he wasn't really getting it was all about him a couple years ago, and then Garza blew up, and CJ Frederick, thanks CJ. Thanks for leaving. He grew up, or he blew up, and Wieskamp blew up, and then Bohannon kind of, let's put those way. There's a reason why he's still there. So I'm interested to see what he has left. It feels like this could be one of those 3 years ago teams where Jabo is just heaving, maybe 2 years ago, where Jabo's just heaving buzzer beaters. And it could be a really fun team like that. I question some of the, guys they're relying on. I was looking at their rotation. I'm seeing that, Peyton Sanford, or what's his name? Sanford. He's going to get play. Is he supposed to give them really good minutes? It's tough. McCaffrey said he's ready, so I guess he can. If he looks like Keegan Johnson, that'd be great. There was a lot to like from some of the guys last year. Ulis gave them, it was good to see that the guys got a lot of play last year. Perkins and Ulis and Agundale, he seems ready. I saw him on Twitter, let's go. He's added some weight. I hope Patrick McCaffrey's added a little bit more weight as well. And then the new guy, Philip Rebraca from North Dakota, who's supposed to be the new guard. He's not going to be Garza, but he's supposed to fill in that role left by Garza and Nunji. It might be a blessing in disguise, actually, that we all love Jack Nunji. It was just tragic, his season last year with his dad and then his injury and stuff. But losing him and Garza might, because they don't have a lot of big men, maybe that will force them to adapt to a more, I hate to say this because I'm not sure about their guard play ever, but a more guard oriented, just much smaller lineup that could really help them if they get in the NCAA tournament. If down the, I think if you're doing that more than dump it into Garza, as we saw against Oregon, I think that's going to suit you better come March. This team, though, has to get there, and they're counting on a lot of younger guys to grow up a little bit. In a vacuum, if you didn't tell me last year was such a disappointment, it should be a fun team. I love watching Keegan Murray out there. He is so much fun. He should only be getting better. I'm excited to see what his brother can do now, 1 year in, and some of these new guys that we kind of saw last year, but they just look too young. Patrick McCaffrey, I'm expecting him to take a big leap this year. and he gave them nice minutes last year at times. He looked bad at times, but that'll happen. I mean, he was essentially a first-year player last year. So yeah, in a vacuum, it's an exciting team. With the context that it's following last year, it's tough to now be fighting again for 7 to 10 seeds in the NCAA tournament, but I guess that's just the reality of Iowa basketball. And how good can they be? I think in the Big Ten, it's a pretty clear, Michigan and Purdue are the overwhelming favorites, and then Illinois. OSU is up there. I think after those 4, it's a bit of a drop. I don't see Michigan State in the top 4, which tells me that they'll probably win the league because that's how this thing works. And then really in that Maryland, Indiana, I'll throw Michigan State in there just right now. Maryland, Michigan State, Indiana, Rutgers, Iowa. I don't think Iowa is better than most of those teams, but I think they can finish in that mix. There's a definite drop off from 10 to 14. Minnesota, Penn State, Northwestern, Nebraska are all terrible. And I don't expect any of them to really make a leap. So it'll be very fascinating. This is a really, last year it was just, we knew they were going to be great and they turned out to be really good. This year, this team can be good. And, under Fran the last few years, it's weird because we talk about the fade at the end of seasons, and I feel that sometimes they make the leap so early. I think that's what happens with this program is, you come into a season, unlike last, when there's not a lot of expectations in terms of like winning a Big Ten, and they make a leap so quickly, now due to easy schedule or whatever, that when they kind of regress to what they are, it feels like a fade. And it's tough to take when you're hanging on in the bubble and you're losing 6 or 7 down the stretch, and, you're losing the Big Ten tournament games. And it would be nice to do it the other way because the NCAA tournament committee always looks at recency and all that. So it'd be interesting to see when this team, if they should make a leap at some point, I think, just where you go, okay, they're pretty solid now. Like, we can see the rotation, and Murray's outstanding. And I wonder if it'll take a while. Now, looking at their schedule, I gotta be honest. I have season tickets. I live in Des Moines, and I'll drive to Iowa City for any game of note. I'm gonna have to plan a whole weekend around one of these. I think there's one before the Minnesota game against Kansas City, but I mean, this slate: Longwood, Kansas City, North Carolina Central, Alabama State, Western Michigan, and Portland State. That's their first 5-6 games. I mean, yeesh. Those are, I don't know. Like, if I'm not within walking distance, I don't know if I'm going to those. But they should be 6-0 heading to Virginia, which will be very tough. I mean, they should be 6-0, and then they're at Virginia, at Purdue, and home against Illinois, and then at Iowa State. So they could be 6-4. Well, actually, Iowa State's really bad. They could be 6-3. They could start 6-0 and be 6-3. So they're gonna have to grow up quickly. As bad as that opening slate is for a spectator, that'll serve them very well. This team is much better off with 6 warm-ups, get the confidence going. If they're not 6-0, then it's going to be a long season probably. None of these teams are particularly any good, but get the confidence going, set up the rotation, because come Thanksgiving, November 29th, right after Thanksgiving, Virginia and at Purdue, and Illinois at home, and then in Ames, it amps up quickly. And then actually after that, they go to South Dakota to play Utah State. So it'll be fascinating to see what this team is, and there's an excitement in that respect. There definitely is. I think the thing that tempers my expectations is Iowa under. They will be lucky to score 30 on Virginia. Really, that game might be first to 50. But Iowa won't score 30. You're right. That'll be tough. And I think that's a thing too that I'm going to have to remember and catch myself on is, and I get what this team is, but this team's going to take lumps. I mean, when your goal is, God, if we max out, can we sneak in as like a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament? You're not an elite team. You're not a very good team. You're probably a solid to good team at maxing out. And so I think that's going to be important and this is what makes it in the context of including last year's disappointment so tough is that we were a 2 seed with a chance and should have been in the Sweet 16. And now I'm taking my lumps again, at Purdue. And this program has a tendency to go to Purdue and lose by 100 and then beat Illinois at home. So there's going to be a lot of that too. I guess what's frustrating with this program is I just know it would be shocking to me. It really would be shocking to me if this team made a humongous leap. It just doesn't seem like they ever do that. Like really big leap. I'm thinking like top 4 Big Ten and like a shocking, start to Big Ten play where they could challenge. It just doesn't happen. And that's, that's partly talent. But that's just how Iowa is. It seems like a trademark Fran 7 to 10 seed team that will take their lumps. They should beat who they should beat. Iowa State is terrible. You have to win that game. I'll be there at that game so if they lose that, you'll know how much fun I had. But they should win. This isn't a team that should lose to Campbell. They should win all these non-conference games. Southeastern, after that tough slate, Southeastern Louisiana, Western Illinois, they should win every non-conference game. That should not be a thing. You never know. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. But it should be interesting. It should be very fascinating to see who's a real player on this team. Can younger guys, can Peyton Sanford, can any of those guys that we kind of saw last year, Agundale, can they really impact? I hope these guys grow up quickly. I think being on that team last year really helps just with all of the, playing with Garza, playing with Wieskamp, 2 guys that are in the NBA right now. Man, it hurts that CJ left. CJ Frederick, that it just hurts. And it hurt at the time, and it really hurts. You throw him on this team, and they're better than a couple more teams in the Big Ten, probably. I really think so. That will be very sickening if Kentucky, which should be a player, is out there and he's draining shots. And I'm always one to take the player's side. It's his, it's his decision. I would never, he can play where he wants to play, and more power to him. I know it got weird there with his uncle or something, but I can't root for Kentucky because I can't take it if he's shooting threes in the Final Four. But more power to him. I would never hold that against anyone. So that's where we are with basketball. Just a reminder, next Tuesday, Iowa plays their first game at check the time here, 9 p.m. So this can serve as the lead-in to Iowa versus some school named Longwood. That game is on the Big Ten Network, if you can imagine. There must be nothing else on that night if they're televising Iowa versus Longwood games. Where is Longwood? I have no idea where Longwood is. I'll look that up after we're done here. I'll be on at 8 p.m. Central. Game's on at 9 p.m. Central. And the game's on at 10 Eastern. Wow, that's a heck of a start time. I'll be on at 8 p.m. Central. We'll preview Iowa versus Longwood. We'll have a little bit on Iowa versus Slippery Rock. Most of the time, though, we'll be talking Iowa, Northwestern, and then Iowa and is it Minnesota? Yeah, Minnesota coming up the next week. In what is, provided Iowa takes care of business against Northwestern. They're currently a 12-point favorites. Over under is 40. I don't think it's hitting. Well, Northwestern's defense is really bad. Maybe it will hit 40, but even that seems like a stretch. Like if Iowa's offense is really clicking, are they going to put up more than 21 still? Like, I don't know. And then I don't think Northwestern's scoring 20. But we'll talk about Iowa Northwestern. It should look pretty good. Not that it will mean much in the grand scheme of things. Look ahead to Minnesota. And if Iowa loses that game, then it'll be a very interesting show. So you don't want to miss it because I might be in an iron lung by then. They can't lose. They just cannot lose this game. I won't be happy if they win. But if they lose, it would mark. Although we're not rooting for them to lose, but you have to wonder, are these the type of games if you lose that maybe changes start to happen? I don't want to get into that dirty thinking. We're never going to root against Iowa in these situations, but just in the back of your head, maybe you think that. But they can't lose this game. They can, but they can't for, I think, all of our sanity at this point. And yeah, so then we'll look ahead to Minnesota, and which should be a very interesting game because it feels like Iowa's going to win that based on nothing else except they just had Minnesota's number, but I wouldn't expect it. I mean, it just feels that way. I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota came in and whipped them because anyone with a pulse right now could probably beat this Iowa team. Have faith in what? Faith in what? Season's over. I don't. What's the faith right now? Yeah, that's it. Tomorrow, Adam Jacobi should be on at 8 Central to look ahead to Northwestern. He might be a little bit more chipper. My apologies. I've been getting over COVID vaccine booster shot. So it's been, I've had that. I've had the aches and pains, and I've been thinking about Iowa, Wisconsin for the last 72 hours. So it's been a fun weekend and Monday and Tuesday for me. But it's all good. I have to be reminded over and over and over again, it's just a game and it's not life and death. Quite frankly, I don't want to hear it. We all know it's not life and death. So I think we can be upset. You know what? I'm sorry. I have to, before I go, I have to say, and I said this a couple weeks ago after the Purdue game, why can't people be angry / upset / disappointed when Iowa loses a game? Why does it have to turn into, and maybe this goes back to the culture of the program, and maybe is it healthier? I don't know. But why the second the game ends, do I have to see tweets from former players going, the sun will come up tomorrow. Believe me, I'm seeing former players. Believe me, the kids are feeling this more than the fans. They're as disappointed as anyone. We know. I'm 32 years old. I get it. I understand. I understand that people die every day. I understand that, there's people in the hospital and that this is just football and it's just a game. We all get that. But there's a reason why we sit and watch these games every week, and we watch 3 hours of this, and I travel to Wisconsin for it. We care deeply about it. Yeah, no, it's not life and death. And yeah, the sun will come up tomorrow and I'll be fine. And this doesn't affect my family, and nobody's taking this personally. That's it. But can we just you're welcome. But can we just can everyone just vent for at least 72 hours? Do I have to, Iowa put up 150 yards of offense. Well, the sun will come up tomorrow. Never mind, No. I think this is how we get into this. Kirk is never leaving, and Brian is the OC, and then the head coach. It turns into when nobody cares anymore. It just people stop evolving, and it's just the status quo. I think that's the problem here. And so that mentality where it's you can't be upset because you're not playing, you don't understand. Hashtag, Kirk is a great guy. Hashtag Iowa. It gets so old. It's just so exhausting, and I would not put it past this team either. I mentioned this earlier, to rattle off 4 wins, go nowhere, go to the Outback Bowl, win against a bad Florida team, and then they're running around with a trophy in Tampa on January 1st, and we're supposed to be happy again. It gets exhausting. It gets exhausting sometimes with the fan base and the sycophants, and no matter what, we got to defend the program. We have to defend Kirk, and I saw people, you can't leave a game early. Are you kidding me? You know how much money I dropped $500 on that trip. I can leave whenever the hell I want. And I left third quarter, done. I can't take it anymore. They didn't show up. Why should I show up? Sorry, I had to get it off my chest. That was a lot of Saturday following the game. But I'm gonna go. I got to get some rest from the booster. I should be good in about 12 hours. But this has been great. We just eclipsed the hour mark. That was my aim. Heads up, Iowa plays an exhibition in basketball against Slippery Rock Friday at 7:01, which is a weird start time, on Big Ten Plus. So fire everyone's hospital parking. I guess that would be more prudent. No, I'm not even calling for firings. Okay, fire Brian. I'm not calling for Kirk to be fired. It's just, can we be upset with the program? How about Barta forces Kirk to make changes? He can do that. Yes, thank you. And I think criticizing within reason. Nobody's threatening the kids. Nobody's attacking people personally. I mean, this is all on the field. People saying Petrus isn't a great quarterback. Nobody's saying he's a bad person. I mean, look, he has to perform. He's out there. Like, you have to perform. In your job, you have to perform. That's what this is. I'm sorry. So, and I think it's healthy. I think when you limit the criticism and it all becomes propaganda, that's how stuff festers, and that's how it becomes, this 8-4 theater every year, and we have to start accepting it. And then I can get talked into it. All of a sudden, when I can't criticize Kirk, all of a sudden I get talked into, they won the Holiday Bowl and went 10-3. And then when 2 years later you sit there and you're like, wait, I got nothing. I won nothing. I have a Holiday Bowl trophy. Great. Big Ten doesn't even in the Holiday Bowl anymore. Who even remembers now? Anyways, I'll have more of this next week. Hopefully they beat Northwestern, and we'll have something happy to talk about for a week. They should run all over this team. We'll see. Somehow they're still ranked. The AP Bowl is an embarrassment if Iowa is still ranked. Friday, Slippery Rock exhibition basketball team, 7:01 on Big Ten Plus. I'll watch it. I have Big Ten Plus. I don't expect most of you to. So I'll have something from that on Tuesday. And we'll go from there. Longwood next Tuesday. Basketball starting. Football is stumbling to the finish line. Feels like every other year. And just a reminder on Facebook, up at the top, Iowa Sports Review. Follow us on Twitter, IA Sports Review. Follow us there. That's my Twitter handle at the bottom, at Classy Hawkeye. You can follow me. I write on Go Iowa Awesome every Friday. I have a piece, usually hitting on something historic. I still don't know what I'm talking about this Friday, so we'll see. But look for my article there. It'll be dropping Friday afternoon. And catch Adam tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central. He should be on. Looking ahead to Northwestern, he should have a lot of thoughts. He wasn't around after the Wisconsin game, so I'm very interested to hear his thoughts too on that. And who knows? Maybe he'll be more angry than I was. You never know. But this is Tom Clos signing off. Iowa Sports Review. I will see you next Tuesday as Iowa sets up to open against Longwood. I have to look where that school is. I'm confused right now. But until then, have a good one. Bye, everyone.